Hi everyone. Hi Adrian. What a great session we had yesterday around cloud, right, Adrian?
Yes, it was a really good session, wasn't it, Eve? We had a really good presentation from Daniel Lenecki from IBM, who had a great depth of experience and knowledge around using cloud computing and helping the group think through some of the issues around some of the benefits and some of the challenges that are related to deciding whether you want to begin to utilize that form of technology.
Yes, and I believe Daniel was a former strategist for security in Barclays. He worked on the Olympics, so he did do some homeworks around the choice of technology. So what was his main point? How did he start the session?
Well, I think one of the big takeaways I got from it, and a point he reiterated on a number of occasions, was it's terribly important that businesses really think through what they want to get from their video management system before they make the decision whether to invest in cloud computing. What do you want it to do? Because that can really influence how you might begin to develop a system that utilizes cloud technologies.
Yeah, and he also mentioned that you don't need to jump into the cloud. Maybe you're not ready with infrastructure. Maybe you don't budget the VPN connections. Maybe there are so many maybes, so it can be on-prem solution, can be hybrid solution, but you always need to think where will you end in 5, 10 years time. So that which is influencing the technology. But he did actually do some specific advantages of the cloud solution even now. And he mentioned several points, such as scalability, such as the centralized management. What were theirs?
Yeah, he went through because of his depth of experience of seeing how organisations have used this. He was able to really help the group think about what the potential benefits might be for them. And as you say, there are issues around cost reduction. You can begin to centralise, the maintenance and control and updating of the technology rather than having it distributed across a business. The whole issue around scalability, of course, you really are it's almost limitless in terms of what you can do via cloud computing. But other issues around things like business continuity, if things were to go wrong, then often it can be a lot easier to recover when it's in a centralized utility such as the cloud. And then he touched on a whole range of issues around what efficiencies that can come from utilizing cloud technologies around the centralized management, around enabling more parts of the organization to access information and so on. So it was a real list of potential opportunities that could come from investing in cloud computing.
Yeah, maybe to give like some practical example, if we think about on-prem solution, we need to choose the server. We need to know where it ends from the capacity perspective, right? So, and then we need to upgrade the latest software on it. We need to upgrade the operational system. So it's so many components when if you take it to the central location, you just don't need to think about it. And plus, you don't need to have a staff who is going to manage it. And I think one of the most important, and normally I talk about it on every basic level, it's about cybersecurity. Right now we see with the COVID situation, it's so much more cyber attacks and so much more vulnerabilities, which we can see. We need to make sure that our passwords are changed, which might have not been that noticed for the past 10 years. We still see the systems with the standard password. So it all needs to be managed, and the more centrally it manages, the better, because then we have less of a human error. So the upgrades, it's not just for new functionality, it's practically just to make sure that the vulnerabilities are taken away as quick as possible. And then we were talking about video analytics. That was an interesting discussion as well.
Yes, it was. And I think, some of the responses from the group was interesting here. There were concerns around things like bandwidth is an issue here, that if you're going to rely upon cloud computing for doing, immediate analytical response, then there are challenges there around bandwidth, isn't there? That if you want a quick response, have you got the bandwidth capability within your business to enable that analytic to happen? Or it may be that you're doing a much more review-based analytics where, the bandwidth is less of an issue because you don't have such immediacy to get the response. And so a lot of the group were concerned about their organization's capability and its bandwidth to enable them to do that form of analytics.
Yes, and also I think it's important to differentiate the heavy analytics, the heavy on processing, or something which is already commoditized. And when we're thinking about the people counting or queue management or some business intelligence analytics, these are analytics which can sit on the edge of the camera, or there is a small box which can sit next to the camera, which doesn't bring more weight for the management, but it's pretty much the part of that camera. If we can put that type of solution, then we don't need a heavy processing power server on the premises. It still can generate the data. The data can go in the cloud. You can generate the dashboard. You can have all sort of advantages from the analytics. But when we need a heavy situation like a fight detection, like a facial recognition, which is questionable on its own, but when we really need a lot of processing, it's sometimes not really scalable to think about it. You cannot put it on every camera and still put a lot of servers. It's just not going to be feasible from the commercial point of view.
Yeah, it was. I think what I really took away from this was, that you really need to understand what are the analytics you want to run, and only then, once you understand what you want to do, can you then begin to make a decision about, well, do we use cloud, do we use a hybrid system, do we use both, and we mix and match for the sort of analytic that we want to do. So it wasn't really a one size fits all. I think it was much more thinking through the considerations of what the analytic requires and what is the capability for your business to be able to achieve that.
And again, I really like that phrase in the end, that you cannot outsource thinking, and you cannot just get the technology for the sake of technology. You cannot allocate budget to technology. It's all about the outcomes and how to solve these outcomes cheaper than the situation actually brings the problem, right? So that was interesting. We still encourage everyone who wants to see the full recording to register by the link below. And the next session we're going to have, what is going to be about?
Yeah, so the next session is much more practical in many respects. It's looking at some examples from retailers who've been using video to try and help them secure their parking lots, or car parks as we call them in the UK. And so we're going to get some feedback from retailers who've been using a range of different approaches to help try and secure what can be very vulnerable spaces for retailers in terms of vulnerability, and making sure that customers feel safe in those spaces. So that's going to be a session we're going to be holding on the 11th of November, 1 p.m. UK time. So we look forward to everybody coming along and enjoying that session.
Great. So I'm looking forward to it as well. We will reconnect with you a week before, just to give a little preview. Sure. And till now, have a great week and the weekend soon, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Eve. You take care.
Bye, everyone.